a little over 2 years ago. Like many people, I was stressed out in the world. Coronavirus was going on and things of that nature. And I see all the problems in many facets, like my family's problems. And then when you go out and you see, the world and you work on elevators, you see the problems everywhere. And that's all I was dealing with everywhere was problems. And I just decided I was going into some buildings and I started talking to some accountants, and then I started talking to some attorneys. But I had done a little research on public-private partnerships here and there, because I know that it's a fleet of elevators, and, elevators move more people every day than planes, trains, and automobiles put together.
Sure.
So right there, you think big, like any elevator. Most people, elevator people, they always think big egos, big work. We do something special. So I sat down with a 501c3 attorney, and I said, my good man, I'd like to develop a public-private partnership, modernizing elevators for the entire, United States fleet of elevators in public spaces.
Hello, and welcome to the Elevator Careers Podcast, sponsored by the Allred Group. I am your host, Matt Allred. In this podcast, we talk to the people whose lives and careers are dedicated to the vertical transportation industry to inform and share lessons learned, building upon the foundation of those who have gone before to inspire the next generation of elevator careers.
Today our guest is Scott Drummond, president and founder of Emmy's Elevator, a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and founder of Noakes Mountain Benefit Corporation. Scott has over 20 years in the elevator trade as an elevator mechanic. He has seen the disparity of dilapidated elevators throughout the country and has decided to tackle this problem head on. By creating a public-private partnership, Scott has the vision and vehicle to bring about modernizing elevator infrastructure in public facilities throughout America. Scott sees this effort advancing every sector of the elevator industry and creating jobs using American equipment.
Scott, welcome to the show.
How you doing, Matt?
Doing great. Thank you for being here today. I'm excited to talk to you, and partly just because you're creating a very unique avenue in the elevator industry that I want to understand a little bit better, and hopefully our listeners can understand a little bit better what you're doing and how, in my mind, you're kind of changing the world. So let's dive in.
Anyway.
Exactly. How did you get started in the elevator industry from the beginning?
It was 1999, and my ex-wife's cousin was in the elevator trade, and I was working for Giant Food at the time, department manager, and I heard about the elevator business and all the great things from her cousin, and he got me, an interview and everything like that, and I started with Dover it was ending being Dover Elevator and transferring over to Tiffin. And then basically that's how I got in. As soon as I got in, it only took me about 6 months, working with mechanics and things like that, and being on the job in construction at Dover, Tiffin, where I realized, man, I love this. I love this world. This elevator world was where I'm born to be in, kind of. I was a wild man back in the day, a lot of roughness, rough around the edges, complex, upbringing, and starting in New York and moving down to Virginia, which, gives me a good perspective on people in the world when you're from Long Island and you kind of finish the second half in the woods in Virginia. I like to think I can kind of talk to everybody in a way, but it was, man, and over the next over 20 years, I just fell in love with it more and more every single day of my life. It's hard, actually, not to get emotional about it because I do love it that much, man.
Yeah.
And it is, that is going through the apprenticeship program, all that stuff. I realized that, man, I've spoken to so many people over the years. My friends all went to school, went to college, and things of that nature. And it's really hard to find one or two actually that don't look at me and go, man, I should have did what you do. I should have went into the elevator business, or, been an elevator mechanic. But, when you see only 30,000 of us, 35,000 probably in total in the whole entire country being an elevator mechanic, because that's what I'm sitting here as. I'm sitting here as an elevator mechanic who I like to tell people is, man, you're part engineer. You are a social engineer. You are an electrical engineer. You are a mechanical engineer, everything, and being able to do all those things, it translates into life. and
Oh,
repairing.
absolutely.
It's about repair, modernization, and things like that for every human being, just as much as it is an elevator, in neighborhoods. And I went through that, as a father. I grew up in the elevator business and being father in the elevator business, and having my kids be able to see, two young men and a beautiful daughter, being able to see somebody who, truly loves their work, no matter how hard it got, whether I
What
was
is it that
going out.
you love the most? What is it that really, you said within that first 6 months, what was it that kind of clicked for you?
I could totally be me. There's no censorship in that world, when you're an elevator mechanic, you're so needed, you can almost, there's nowhere that's not going to let you in, you go to the White House and, it's 2:30 in the morning and that elevator don't work. And the guy's giving you, okay, man, well, call me back when you're ready. And you leave, you're getting called back 2 seconds. Like, come on back, because you're that important. But that is why I love it, is because of the importance of that job, and it is a job that not enough people know about. And when I started working with, one of the bigger counties around here, working with the government and, the jail and the courthouse, they really showed me and told me how, dude, you're like the most vital person on this entire project, on this entire facility.
Sure.
When anything breaks in there, if there's a security problem, call the elevator dude first. If there's this problem, those are the people, the elevator people are the ones, our system gets into every single system in the building. And
Right.
because if they don't work, ours isn't going to work.
Right.
But it was, man, it's been a long journey, and one that retirement is not in my future. I don't ever want to retire. And that's part of the reason I wanted to design something like this, is because I got to a point where I wanted to lead people in this business. I said, no, I think I've seen so much. It's all about patterns and things of that nature. But finally,
let's talk a little bit about what you are creating. What after 20 however many years, and just kind of the vision that you're seeing that really needs to be created in your mind.
I live in Loudoun County out here in Virginia, one of the most beautiful, counties in the country, I like to think. And I was living on 30 acres, a beautiful 30 acres on top of a mountain, a small mountain here in Loudoun County. And I was spending my evenings running calls, 6, 7, 8, 9 hours on the road a day, going to DC and, Baltimore and places like that. And the company I was with at the time had a lot of public facilities. And when you see the things that go on, see the things that happen to a building when an elevator is not functioning, the whole building's depressed. I mean, you go from where a piece of machinery, it's like I mentioned, it's like your front door is locked and you got to wait for an overworked elevator guy or gal or whoever to come in and, either get there from, like I said, you're traveling 100, 200 miles, in a day in a trip sometimes to fix elevators. It's even more so out west. Sure. And when you talk about things like that, you're talking about old people, you're talking about people in wheelchairs, you're talking about people that, you don't want them to have to wait, that they spend their life waiting. But it was, working on the side of the government where everything kind of works good, where you're going into CI, you're going into all these special buildings that, oh no, they're taking care of all those places. And then at nighttime, you're running all the calls at these other places, which is their fleet as well. Their fleet of elevators goes from the White House to the public houses and
So you're seeing this huge disparity is what I'm hearing, between, oh, this building's important, so we're going to make sure that equipment's up and running and functioning perfectly. Whereas maybe over in this section, I don't know, we don't care as much, or it's just not a top priority, or
logistics and just the way the things function in the world,
Sure.
You don't want the top breaking down. I can understand that, Matt. And when you get to the bottom, that's a place where things just settle. There's many terms you can call it in this world. Certain things roll downhill, right?
Sure.
And it's a place where, there's never been a fix for it. It's throw money at it, throw money at it, throw money at it. Well, don't throw money at it. Put money into it. Create jobs, create all the things, create small business, create all these things that benefit in many ways. you go from a tax deduction to taxes created in a way.
So let's talk about that a little bit, because I think that just to identify the problem and then say, hey, create small business. I need to I need to kind of go into the vehicle as you described it that you're using to kind of address the problem, and being able to invest in these areas and kind of beyond that. So you talked about not on this yet, but you told me about a public private partnership, I believe you called it. Is that correct?
Yep,
So
yep.
tell me what is that? What and let's talk about some, we'll talk about some examples that are already in existence. But for me, it's just not a common term, public private
Yeah.
partnership. I'm like, what is that, and what are we talking about? So give us just a little bit info on that.
So, a little over 2 years ago, like many people, I was stressed out in the world. Coronavirus was going on and things of that nature. And I see all the problems in many facets, like my family's problems. And then when you go out and you see, the world and you work on elevators, you see the problems everywhere. And that's all I was dealing with everywhere was problems. And I just decided I was going into some buildings, and I started talking to some accountants, and then I started talking to some attorneys. But I had done a little research on public-private partnerships here and there, because I know that it's a fleet of elevators, and, elevators move more people every day than planes, trains, and automobiles put together.
Sure.
So
Right.
right there, you think big, like any elevator. Most people, elevator people, they always think big egos, big work. We do something special. So I sat down with a 501c3 attorney, and I said, my good man, I'd like to develop a public-private partnership, modernizing elevators for the entire, United States fleet of elevators and public spaces, and also bringing ADA up to code everywhere. And that was, like I said, almost 2 years ago now. And probably 6 months later, after a lot of, all about conflicts of interest, making sure we're not, nobody's being left behind. It's not about taking from anywhere. It's about creating something and sharing. And that's what you think when you hear the word public-private partnership in this aspect. They do exist in many other places in this country, but they've never existed in something like this that I think actually gets so much done and creates so much that it more acts like a business system than it does a public-private partnership.
Well, when I researched it, it talked about how public-private partnerships are used to build bridges and roads and tunnels and and it said infrastructure. Exactly. And yet elevators, to your point, is bigger infrastructure when you're talking about the number of people it's moving than a lot of those other things. Although, a bridge is a bigger piece of infrastructure, but it's not as big as the entire system of elevators. If you're talking about all elevators in all public housing, that's a lot. I mean, I don't know.
Facilities. We're talking military bases. We're talking everywhere, and they're everywhere. This public fleet, and you touch everybody, and that's where it's a public-private partnership, and that. When you start tapping into the government's fleet of elevators and really how it works with everywhere else is also a different beautiful way, because you can get into the private world where people have they're buying small buildings and they don't have money to fix their elevator buttons and things of that nature, because we can get that narrow. We can go from fixing a whole elevator to also hey, we need some buttons over here, we can't afford it. We hear things like that all the time. Now, certain customers can't afford that, and certain customers can. That's where management and the things that we have installed to make sure we protect this charity, to make sure it's working on a complete legal level. But yeah, it's a piece of infrastructure, and that was the word. The whole world is geared towards infrastructure right now in this country, and this is a business opportunity. And to build an infrastructure project for elevators, this is the steps that I've gone through, and it is more complex than building a bridge, because it expands everywhere in the country. We're not just focusing on a bridge over here going into Maryland, into DC. We're focusing on elevators in Maryland and DC. We're focusing on elevators in Des Moines, Iowa. We're focusing on elevators in Tennessee, and not just elevators, ADA issues everywhere. bringing all
Wow.
that up to code. You bring all that up to code with something like this. One company can't do it all.
No,
It
no,
has
no.
to,
Right.
a partnership. We'll look to, the big companies and their shareholders as donors. Here you go. Here's a beautiful, tax deductible way for you to get elevators fixed. And then one day you'll be able to hopefully bid on a, non-proprietary elevator. Your company will have the opportunity to do things like that. So,
Sure.
but the partnership was all built, and it is, the easiest examples is stadiums and things like that get done in this facet, bridges, all sorts
Sure.
of things.
Sure.
But I'm very proud of how I put this together, because I do know all the downsides to a lot of these public-private partnerships. That's why I have absolutely no ownership of either of any of this, elevator company and things of that nature, because the correct way to do it is the exact way I'm looking for to do it is, me having beautiful leadership role in these two companies somewhere in the end, and me helping folks, and get it done. But that, I like to tell people that comes from me being in a union, believe it or not, which is, I'm here to earn for folks. I've always been a good earner for the elevator companies, but now it is where I want to partner with them. I never wanted to be the boss. I just wanted the bosses to listen in a way, because
Sure.
it is, if you can get this type of thing from me as an elevator mechanic, to develop something like a public-private partnership. Can you imagine the guys that are walking around, and the girls and whoever that are walking around in our business today, that if you just give them a little boost, this is about fixing this country, and
Right.
and public is, we're the public, all of us, no matter who we are,
True. So tell me, I guess just a little bit more info. I mean, we've talked about, getting other companies involved. How would, let's say you talked about Iowa, you talked about, different parts of the country. How would somebody go about utilizing this? Let's say I'm an elevator contractor in Memphis and I want to fix some elevators. What would kind of be the first step to utilizing this, and what are some of the benefits for another contractor to use this vehicle?
So I sat with an elevator company recently, and it was cool because he was a elevator mechanic, and he's been in the business for, 30, 40 years. And he just did it perfectly. He goes, tell me how it works, and that's all I need is conversations to start. And that is, connecting with me. This is something where, we don't have a website and all these things going yet. Why? Because this is something as we go. It's never existed. So basically, it's about checking the correct boxes all the time. But it is about conversations. Get a hold of Scott, and then Scott will, explain more and more. Each time we'll clear up something that you might see. But it's about, it's donations benefit. You know how donations work.
Sure.
For a nonprofit organization, like any labor organization, their donations are 100% tax deductible. And you go down the line of everybody gets a tax deduction. There's the first benefit. And, the whole world is looking for things like that.
Sure.
In any business, basically. And then you get to partnerships where that's where you can really get a lot of the elevators started fixed everywhere in the world. But then you can, the investment in an elevator company like we've started is the opportunities are almost astronomical with what could happen with an elevator company like this. And with it, being totally partnered with the charitable side of it, because it's an elevator company it is a full-blown for-profit elevator company. And that is a game-changing thing in our industry, that connection. Sure. It is something that it's not something that's built to take from anywhere. It's built to create something, like I said before, and share that. But it is just get a hold of me through LinkedIn or, Instagram is where I've been working at, trying to. I have the legwork I've put in for this. I've worked with economic development for the last 2 years with some of their small women and minority business stuff. We've also been recently asked to be on the Chamber of Commerce out here in Loudoun County, which are, just more boxes being checked. I've sat with so many, like I said, attorneys, accountants, and we're talking specific attorneys, not just one or two. We're talking over a dozen attorneys have vetted through all this. And that's what I'll say to any business owner is, I've done all the legwork. Now just open that door and let's have that conversation and keep on going. And It is fully ready to be donated to tomorrow. Our nonprofit has full tax exempt status, and that was key to this. And that took almost 11 months, 12 months for that approval to come through.
Right.
So it wasn't something that wasn't vetted by the government and things of that nature. The IRS, they made sure that this would work with them, and that's because we made sure it would work with them before we even sent it in. So, but that is where, a lot of the people I talk to, I say, come sit with me and the attorneys we use, because that's exactly how I want to explain it to you, because I want to make sure all the legal, this is all legal based. This is all accounting. If it's all done correctly, there is absolutely nobody in the whole entire elevator industry that cannot benefit.
Cool. So I am curious, what's some of the pushback? I'm just assuming there is, because you're changing, just maybe changing the industry. What are some of the pushback that you're getting?
It is literally lack of information. That's it. What I have, like I said, I've vetted this through elevator mechanics, 30, 40, 50 years. My perfect vet, we'll call it, was with an elevator mechanic whose dad had an elevator company years ago. And his dad couldn't compete with low bid. He had a small company. He couldn't bid. He wanted to do good work. That was the number one thing he wanted to do.
Sure.
He didn't want to slack. He wanted to say, here, I'm going to give you a good contract. You're going to see all these things happen. And when I brought this idea to him, now I was approaching this, we're going, oh man, this is my toughest sell, to this person right here, because I know his knowledge base. And when we were done after 5-6 hours, it didn't take 5 or 6 hours. The minute I started talking to him, because he's an elevator, person, he immediately started catching on. Okay, because he was hearing about everything. And at the end of that, it got me emotional. He kind of said, when you get so smart, and this would have saved my father's elevator company.
Wow.
And his father's elevator company wasn't some big, it was just a small mom and pop shop that wanted to do work correctly the way he saw it being done. Why? Because he's bidding on a lot of pieces of junk that, are literally still pieces of junk today. A lot of those places that he would have been working back in the 90s and whatnot, when times were tough again, in the economy. That was so pushback is literally just, there isn't any. It's about just getting the door open and having a conversation. I'll say politics. You want to bring politics into what we're doing here? That would probably be some of the pushback. But I'm pretty proud of what I put together. And I'm a middle of the road guy. And when you have, profit built into social good stuff, I think what you mentioned, Adam Smith, there's two things like that, and that's who I am. I am in to deal with, I don't pick and choose who I do business with. I do business with everybody, and that's my goal. So
let me just to tease that out just a little bit more. So the small player you've mentioned, they don't have to compete with low bid. And is that because they're partnering with the not-for-profit entity, that the public charity that gives them, I guess, access to the tax breaks, to the donations, to different, it's a different economic model than just bidding a job. And so they can then step in there, actually do good work, and still earn a good return without all of the same competing influences. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. This is something where we have the elevator. Now remember, the project is modernization of this fleet. That does not include maintenance and things of that nature, warranty service and whatnot. When you're looking at non-proprietary equipment, these are all the things that are going to benefit everybody in the end, because you come in, you're bidding on a job where it's, 50, 60-year-old elevator, DC motor generator sets. You come in with this elevator, listen, we're going to give you a good bid, but listen, we know this elevator can be fixed. We're not going to sit here and we're not going to bid on something that's going to be falling apart for the whole time we have it. This qualifies, big word there to be using. This qualifies for, possibly working with the nonprofit and the benefit elevator companies that we work with to get this modernized. All after, and with that becomes a position where we, the existing maintenance company, basically takes care of the warranty service. And the warranty service is something that, the charity will make sure gets done by beautiful, the existing, it's all about keeping balance.
Sure.
And you don't come in and take anything from anywhere. You come in and work together. And it happens all the time in the elevator business where another company modernizes it
Sure.
and another company keeps the maintenance. This is that same exact ecosystem where you're just making sure that elevator that small company is bidding on and going to be working on for a few years doesn't have to worry about it falling apart. They're going to actually be able to worry about.
So instead of just throwing expensive parts at this thing is going to fall apart, we now have the ability and assistance to do a full blown modernization, put new equipment in there, and so we're not just continuing to pour money down the drain.
Yep, and all in the name. The main thing about the charitable side of it is jobs, jobs, jobs. It all creates more jobs, and the more work, the more jobs are created. And now that's where you see, the aspect where it's a public charity and a public-private partnership is because of the amount of jobs that this can generate. It is because it spreads it out, into the entire building, basically, to all sorts of stuff. So
right. And you mentioned, speaking with the union and just getting approvals, and it sounds like you've had a lot of conversations with just about every single aspect, everybody that's affected in any way or has a way to influence. So there's a lot going on.
yeah, there's a lot of explaining, just like we're doing here. This is a step, which I thank you for, Matt, getting my voice out there, looking at people. This is I'm trying to pay attention to the behind what's going on my phone. Is everybody friends of mine? People that are still on the fence with something like this. I'm hoping I'm getting more of that conversation. Going okay. And it works. That's what I can look at everybody across, into this camera, my phone or whatever. This works. And I promise every human being in the elevator business that I have made sure that we have done something that can work with everybody in the elevator business.
Sure. And you've talked a little bit about job creation and had talked earlier about the small minority and women-owned businesses. And does this play? I shouldn't say that it may be tailored to them as much as it allows them to play in the space. Is that how that? Am I saying that correctly?
It creates space for everybody. Like I said, when you work with the existing maintenance companies, that can be new. That can be anybody. That's a whole separate. It's all together.
Sure.
And it's what business is geared towards everywhere is diversifying it. And I don't like to use that word too much. I like the word equal. Basically,
sure.
It's just bringing but it's also the future. The future is not the past, and that's the past follows us around everywhere, unfortunately, in this country these days. And this is a good balanced way of doing that all together and bringing everybody, it's not about taking, it's about creating and sharing. And like I said, this isn't an existing market. This is a market that never would have existed without this type of, entity being created. And that is the key part right there. So it is a completely normal functioning elevator world, with all the regular elevator stuff going on. And there's this beautiful thing that they work together,
Right.
So it is, it's not so much play. It's literally, it works together. It works as a team,
Sure. And
which is what an economy is.
Yeah. You've talked about, kind of the two aspects. There's the Noakes Mountain elevator, which is, the full blown elevator company. You've named the nonprofit after your granddaughter. Is that correct?
Yes, I did. Mm-hmm.
And so that's Emmy's elevator, I think you call it. Tell me a little bit about Emmy.
So what can get somebody prepared for doing this and doing this hard task that I have of getting this, started and out there was in the middle of the coronavirus. First off, I had my best friend die about 3.5 years ago. Right after my best friend passed away, I was told I was going to be a grandfather, and that for a 44, 45-year-old guy, that's something. Oh, I got some decisions in life here. Almost, it seems like, And Emmy was born, and she had a rough first year. She ended up in the hospital. I won't, my son and Emmy's mother watched her go through some things where, to put it lightly, they probably watched her almost leave this earth almost a half a dozen to a dozen times that first year of her life. And it was through fighting and great parenting and maturity that, you know, that I learned from them, you know. So basically they ended up spending 2 months, almost 2 months in a hospital with her during the height of the coronavirus as young people, you know, 20 years old,
Sure.
where they had no idea what was wrong with her. And it wasn't through some final genetic testing and a few surgeries that basically got her, you know, geared towards recovery. You know, she spent 2 years eating with spent a year or two eating with a G tube on the side of her port on the side of her stomach. Now that is all, you know, she doesn't use that at all anymore. But it was just a problem. It was somebody who was broken, who nobody knew what was going on. They couldn't fix it. I look at machines and people as the same exact thing. You know, I'm sitting out in the parking lot of these hospitals because I couldn't go inside because it's coronavirus and things like that. So I just watched my son and all my children, my other son and my other daughter. They taught me how to be tough. You know, what young people have gone through in this country over the last 5 years is unprecedented. I don't care what adults really have to say about it, but when they can come through it the way they did, it is special. But, you know, that I couldn't do anything for my son or you know, except support. I couldn't tell him to ask the doctor this because they're asking doctors. There are no doctors for this, basically. There's very few, if there is
so
any.
Just a rare condition that they didn't even know what it was.
She's one of 600 children in the world, basically. It's congenital myasthenia syndrome with rhapsody, you know, a genetic default in that. CMS is a larger scale, you know, problem, but hers with the rhapsody is very acute, is probably the right word to use. And this is where I'm holding my emotions back talking about it, because it does get me a little fired up, because I do. My goal in the end is to troubleshoot, which is what elevator people are the best skill that they have is troubleshooting. It is it's what I want to do, is help troubleshoot her future, because her future is a little wide open. And along with, you know, fixing elevators throughout the country and things of that nature, that's a problem that I know how to fix. It is working with the local hospital, hopefully Johns Hopkins Hospital and University, to start studying what's wrong with her more. It is this is the path and avenue to do that. When you have diseases and things of that nature that people don't understand, it's the nonprofit world, and usually people with a lot more money than I have, you know, getting that type of stuff done. So, but it was all just watching my kids, my son and whatnot, go through that experience, and me just trying to look at every single way I could help everybody I see having a rough time in this world. Because I know as an elevator guy, man, I was not living it up, but I was okay through all of this, man. We were needed. We never stopped working. We were essential. All these things were so important to the world. I want to now show that to basically everybody how important the elevator mechanic and the elevator business folks can be, because it is a very special business. But it's all geared towards, for me, it is to help my granddaughter and my son. You know, my son and the mother, Victoria, they're champions. They're bosses in the world. But it is, you know, it's a stressful world when you're living with a child who you don't know what's going on. It all had to do with her, you know, basically not being able to breathe. And when you go through things of that nature, it can take your breath away all the time. Every time there's a cough, or there's where, you know, or the baby wants to do certain things that she wants to do, you know, to clear her throat, things like that were complex for her. And it's all related to basically, it's a slow development of the electrical signals from the brain to all the muscles in the body. And sometimes it fixes itself over the years. Sometimes it persists. Right now, she looks like she's, you know, doing very well. She's your normal, regular old little girl in a lot of facets. When she gets sick, it kicks her ass. Sorry about the language, but it kicks her ass more than most kids, you know, just the regular cold and stuff like that. But she's amazing. And I watched, you know, like I said, I watched all of my kids go through everything. So that really, I don't even have the word fear in my mind anymore. It's not an emotion that I deal with. Forward would be a word that I replaced for fear. You know?
Yeah, no, it's beautiful that you've dedicated this work to her, and it sounds like through the nonprofit that you know, there are ways to maybe get more research or get more benefit going towards her condition.
Yep, that's exactly what it's geared for.
Well, I was gonna say, let's talk a little bit about what's your vision. You know, you fast forward 5, 10 years, what do you most want to accomplish?
You know, man, I when I try and get to, you know, a lot of my elevator folks, I just say, picture big brass plaques on front of hospitals, old folks' homes, veterans rehabilitation centers, public housing. Picture big bronze plaques of everybody that donated and everybody that took place uplifting that entire facility when it comes to, you know, the elevator aspect of it. But it's also, you know, seeing elevators talked about everywhere, seeing it go, you know, people saying, no, look at what an elevator business did with America, did with, you know, inner cities, did with, you know, small towns and other places where you've got, you know, you've got VAs out in the middle of West Virginia that have been struggling to get elevators modernized for 50 years. The reach of this, when I get to see, you know, 10 years down the road, I want to see how far it reached. It's not meant to go anywhere specifically. It's meant to go everywhere and hit everybody. And, you know, I'd like to see the elevator business explode. You know, I want to see new companies. I want to see, you know, big companies now use smaller companies and subs everywhere. This is only something that, you know, adds to that system in a way. And it is, for me, it's, if I'm working, if I'm still dirty, you know, I'd love to still, I want to just be you know, a guy turning wrenches in this who just happens to be like the brain that everybody taps into, you know, out in the field, which, you know, all elevator companies have those types of people working for them, you know?
Sure.
But a lot of the brains in this business, especially in the past, have come from the bottom, you know, come from the field and things of that nature. I'll tell, you know, a lot of the elevator business, big companies, mostly, you know, they've got a lot of young people, you know, in management and in supervisory roles and things of that nature that while you don't need to know how an elevator works, it will make your job much easier if you start listening to those folks out in the field. So it's everything, man. I'd like to see just an ecosystem and a business system that has everybody functioning together. Competition is not something that has, at the end of a game, you do the handshake line, you know, we're raised that way. And, you know, in the business game, it can be the same exact thing. You know, oh man, high five, you got this contract or blah, 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 this and that. That's why, you know, in the end, the nonprofit and the benefit portion of the company won't be something that exists forever. It's built to, you know, do a task, which is modernize this fleet. And then after that, it becomes a regular old, you know, business in America, corporation, and things of that nature. So that is it. And, you know, man, I'd really like to have a doctor that my kids could talk to every day that's covered by, you know, their insurance, that my son can talk to about my granddaughter. And that is, for me, that's a simple thing. I get to create a doctor. That's what I want to do. I want to create a professional or somebody of that nature that I want to blow that person up with all the knowledge and what I can get them for, you know, CMS and RAPS and with my granddaughter that I can do. So it's, but the easy thing is, man, those bronze plaques, you see them in hospitals and whatnot everywhere. You see big giant walls. Now you get to see something like that where the elevator industry leads that, you know, and I mean it. It is the elevator industry can say no because of what's fixing this elevator and working with these elevators in a charitable aspect with the government and all these partnerships. By those savings on an elevator, it gets spread to the rest of the building. You know, the savings on that can be put into tenant floors, can be put into, you know, safety systems, you know, everything like that, and uplifting the whole entire building, you know.
Absolutely. Well, and the people inside it, right? Like you talked earlier, right? If I'm needing that elevator, well, this is affecting my life. I'm having to wait and you know, just feel the pain of that.
Your ice cream's melting in the baby carriage is what I like to tell people when elevators are broken. And most people in suburbia and places like that have no idea. They know what that is. It's a pain in the butt getting from the grocery store back to the house. But imagine if you got to go from the grocery store back to the house and there's an elevator in between, you can have all sorts of problems in the world. You know, it boils down to, you know, a statement I like to say to people, and this is, you know, geared towards a lot of folks. You know, you always hear the term, you know, a rising tide raises all ships. But an elevator person will tell you, you know, it has the possibility of drowning everybody on the shore. And with something like an elevator infrastructure project, elevators can lift indiscriminately. And that is, it's a beautiful way to cover, you know, kind of what we're doing on a large scale because there's a social aspect and there's a business aspect of what we're doing. And normally those two things are separated, you know.
Sure.
If you bring them together, that is how you want to do it, because that comes in and adds something to an industry or things of that nature. So it is many different, you know, branches of this tree, but it is a tree that can work anywhere and grow anywhere, you know.
Yeah, that's good. So as we're getting close to our time here, I have a couple questions for you. One is what are the most valuable things you've learned over your career or maybe in the last few years that you'd want to share with our listeners?
Working with people, you know, everybody's dealing in the world now, it kind of seems like, you know, dealing with change.
Sure.
Our technology has us changing as people hourly almost, you know.
Sure.
Our leadership and our government is doing things totally different than they ever have. I'm a person that I like to think that I love being able to talk to everybody. I have learned in my life that you could sit across from me and hate my guts. It is not going to change my view of you. You can sit across from me and love me to death. It is not going to change my view of you. I will leave the table caring about and hoping, you know, I have a relationship with those folks regardless of how they feel about me, because, you know, when you go through my life, Labor Day, I celebrated 10 years sobriety and things like that. Those are the things that I'm proud of, you know, but I'm also not so much proud of it. It's just something that I did in a way, but it is what I want to be doing in this world. Is I'm not trying to bring everybody together. That's not the way the world kind of functions. But I do believe, you know, especially working in the elevator business, man, you know, an elevator mechanic will sit down there, you know, in the street and go, man, how are we going to get that up there? And no matter how they view the helpers or whoever's sitting next to them, they could use terrible words talking about each other. But what are they going to do in the end? They're going to look at somebody and go, you know what? That's the best idea. That's what I'm going to do. That's what the foreman's going to go with. I'm going with that helper, you know, or that new guy, you know, because it is just about getting the job done and using everybody, no matter how they view you or how you view them, to get your task complete. So I think it's all about relationships, business and elevators. Yeah. It's all about good relationships. I have no problem trying to rebuild relationships in my life and build new ones. It is not something that is that I shy away from at all.
Well, everybody's got something to give. You know, that's the beauty of what I'm hearing you say is it doesn't matter where you're from or what you know or what you don't know. Everybody's got a gift to bring, and so, you know, it will, you know, we'll benefit from each other and just having those relationships.
We learn more from disagreement than we do agreement.
I hear you. Understood. Awesome. The last question I want to ask you, Scott, is what's one thing that you would share as advice, you know, maybe somebody who's new to the industry or, you know, just something that you would want to leave our listeners?
Feel lucky and blessed and happy and excited about the job you got, because this business is unlike any other business in the world. I only equate it to, I was hopping out of a hoistway one time in a hospital down in DC. And as I'm climbing up out of the dark, you know, terrible hole, there's this lovely lady sitting right there, and she goes, "Oh man, you're like Batman." And I just got, you know, I get up. Now here I am getting up, my back hurts and all this stuff. And that was one of those moments where it was just like, man, I can be a kid my whole life. You know, this is the type of industry that it will keep you young. It's so like this.
Sure.
Get in it, love it, and be excited about it all the time, because it will teach you things and help you grow as a person because of how vast it is, and every single, you know, person that you can touch, you know, fixing just when you're bringing somebody up a floor, when you're, you know, helping somebody out and get to another, you know, another level, you're helping people, keeping an equal playing field in a way.
Absolutely.
And that is, you know, let the world sort itself out away from the elevator business. That's the way I like to look at it, and just focus on our job and, you know, enjoy it, because it's been hard on me the last 2 years, but it is totally worth it, because I look at the joy that I could possibly have down the road, you know, and sitting, you know, breakfast table with elevator folks is one of the most unique, beautiful places in the world. And I look forward to, you know, doing that for the rest of my life.
Awesome. Thank you, Scott. Appreciate you being on with me today.
All right, man. I appreciate the opportunity for this very much.
You bet. Good luck to you as you continue to build the partnership and modernize the world.
I'm trying. This is a good step, man. I appreciate it. Truly.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Elevator Careers Podcast, sponsored by the Allred Group, a leader in elevator industry recruiting. You can check us out online at elevatorcareers.net. Please subscribe, and until next time, stay safe.